Hi there. This is a video for those of you who will be taking any of Math 052, 053, 072, 073, or 075 with me online this term. The video will begin with a few minutes of just general information that's common to all of those courses. And then after that, you'll either be watching the 052, 053, 075 video, which will explain how to use My Open Math, which is the platform that you will be using, or you'll be watching the 072, 073 video, which will explain how to use the Pearson My Math Lab platform, which is what you will be using. But like I said, we begin with some common stuff to everybody. So first of all, the section of math that you are registered in is what we call online, self-paced, and asynchronous. Very quickly, let me explain what that means. Online, I think, is fairly obvious. It means we do not meet in person. You will be working from probably your own house or perhaps some other place where you have a good secure internet connection. And self-paced, also I think fairly obvious. You will not, I do not dictate the pace at which you work. There are not set test dates. You rate the unit tests when you complete the units and you're ready for the test. And there are not set meeting times. So we don't, that's asynchronous. So the final one, asynchronous, means there are not set meeting times. We don't all get together as a class. You are working at the times that are most convenient for you. There is an online platform which has an e-textbook, worked examples, teaching videos, and other types of resources like that to help you learn the material. And I am here to support you through video chats or emailed questions or different methods like that for when the resources that are there, you need a little bit of extra help, or maybe you need to get a start into a new unit or something like that. We can meet online and I can sort of get you set up to start. So briefly, some advantages and disadvantages to this type of delivery method. Many students find this really, really works for them, and definitely some students find this is not the best method of delivery for them. So advantages, you are not stuck to your instructor's timelines or schedule. So that both goes on a week-to-week basis. There aren't, as I said, there's not set class times you have to attend. You can find the times that are convenient for you to be working on your math. It also goes on a sort of longer term. You might look at the whole term and say, wow, I have lots of free time right now for the next 3 weeks, but then who knows, maybe you're flying out of town to help organize your sister's wedding or something, right? And you're not going to get any math done for that 2 weeks. So you can work now while you have time and get ahead so that you don't fall behind later on. So lots of flexibility in terms of when you do that work. Included also in that ability to work ahead is that if you have multiple courses that you are hoping to complete, upgrading courses that you need to complete, you're not actually constricted to only one course per term. So if you are in Math 052 and you work your way through and you finish the course in a month and a half, and the term still has 2.5 months to go, you can move right into Math 053 and carry on. You can actually complete more than one course per term if you are motivated and able to work through the material fast enough. One more advantage rather is that if suddenly and unexpectedly some life situations come up and you are just not able to work for a couple weeks, in a regular paced class, especially a math class, that would probably be it. You usually can't recover from missing 2 weeks of a math class at the college level. That would be it for your term. Rare exceptions, but for the most part. But in a self-paced class, if suddenly something comes up and you have to move or something and you have no time to work for a week or two, That's okay. You just come back to it. When you have the time, you pick up right where you left off and you keep going. You got to make up that time, of course, but it doesn't sink your entire term just because something comes up for a couple weeks. Disadvantages. The big one here is that you really need to be self-motivated and structured in your ability to work on the material regularly. It is very easy to procrastinate and not get anything done. You have to get in there, even when it gets frustrating, even when you don't understand something. You need to get in there, do the work, reach out to me for the help, not just turn your computer off and leave it for weeks on end and suddenly the term's over and you haven't completed a course, you haven't even completed a unit or something, right? So that's the pros and the cons of this delivery method. Yeah, and later on in the video, I will give you some suggested timelines specific to the course that you're in about how often you need to complete a unit, how much you need to try and get done every day, for example, in order to finish the course within the term, if that's your goal. We're going to look quickly at the course outlines here. It is required that I go through these with you. Do it fairly fast, but you're going to find that most of the information that you need in the course is actually on the online platforms you're using. So here we have Math 052, Math 053, 075, 072, and 073. So every one of you, of course, has your own course outline because the material you're learning is all different in each course. However, the general overview of this course outline is quite similar for all of you. So let's just go through this really fast. This is from a prior term, so please don't look at the specifics of the office hours and that stuff, because it'll be different. So take a look at the one that I send you for this term. But what I want to point out here is my email, best way to get a hold of me, and this link right here, which is our online, my online classroom. That is, if we ever have any kind of meeting where we get together to answer some questions or go through anything, that is where it'll be. So you might want to bookmark that. Scrolling down, you'll see there are some in-person options for help. Both I will have some, and again, they will be different than what's shown here. So take a look at the course outline I send you. And then also there are some general ones from Camosun that you might be able to make use of if you want to go in for some in-person help. Scrolling down here, we got a big list. That's not all that useful, but if you're interested, it lists everything that's in your course. And again, I'm just looking at the Math 052 course here. Every one of yours, again, is going to be different for each of those courses. This is potentially helpful. Some people like to make use of this. This shows section by section what you have, the sections you have to work through, the material you have to learn. Some people like to use this as a little checkbox to sort of track for themselves where they're at in the course and how much they've done. Here we have a calculation of your final grade. So once you have completed all the unit tests and the final exam, this is how your grade would be calculated. Now let's just diverge off here for a second, because there are some options here in terms of your final grade. If you are in Math 052, 053, 072, or 073, one of a few different things can happen. If you do complete the course by the end of this term, then I will give you a letter grade as calculated by that calculation that will show there on your course outline, and that will translate into an A+ or a B- or whatever it is. For those courses there, if you do not complete the course by the end of the term, but you have made significant progress, and what that usually means is that you've completed at least one unit, and you intend to carry on into the next term, I'm actually able to give you an IP, an in progress, and this is another one of the huge advantages of the self-paced model. So instead of failing the course and having to restart from scratch the next term, you can actually pick up right where you left off the next term. You have to register again, and you have to make sure it's in one of the online self-paced sections, and maybe check in with me about that to make sure you got the right section. You do have to pay the student fees and stuff that are associated with that extra term. For those of you that are paying out of pocket, that is something to consider. For those of you that are OG funded, that would be covered by that. Although it's really, really important to note here that if you are OG funded, you can only receive funding for the same course for 2 terms. So if you're in math 053 and you don't quite finish by the end of the term, then you can get your OG funding for Math 053 for 1 more term. If you don't finish by the end of that term, now you have to pay out of pocket in order to continue and finish that course. If you do finish Math 053 and you want to move into Math 072 or 075, then you can get the OG funding again for a new course. It's just you can only get it for 2 terms for the same course. If you do not make significant progress, so if you just never are really able to get going this term and you don't even finish 1 unit, then I unfortunately do have to give you a grade of F, although you at that point could withdraw from the course before the academic drop date, and then you would just receive a W, which all that means is that you decided to withdraw from the course. People withdraw for many reasons. It doesn't reflect badly on your transcript. For Math 075, it's a little different. We don't have the IP option, and that's because there is, at the moment, no guarantee that Math 075 will be continued to be offered in the self-paced online model in future terms. It might be. I am doing it right now because I find that it's really beneficial for students, but it may. I may or may not have courses in the next term, and other instructors may or may not have that option available. For that reason, we are saying if you're in Math 075, you need to plan to finish that course this term. So make sure that you are scheduling your work accordingly. And once again, if you don't finish by the end of the term, I will have to give you an F. You don't have the IP option, or if you withdraw before the academic drop date, then you would receive a W. So that's how your final grades will work and the options you have there. Going back to the course outline, I'm not going to go through the rest. I'll let you read through it. Everything from this point on is standard. You'll see that it's basically identical on all of your Camosun course outlines from any different course. All this stuff here right through to the end of the course outline. Okay, let me just look at my list and make sure. I think I got everything important there. Yeah, so I'm going to sign off this section of the video, and I'm now going to, we'll splice into either an explanation of my open math for the 052, 053, and 075 students, or an explanation of my math lab for the 072, 073 students. One thing I do want to mention, if you are in Math 072 or 073 and you are OG funded, in the following section, I forgot to specifically mention that, I've already recorded it, so I know this. I forgot to specifically mention that when I talk about the purchase of the access code for the e-textbook, if you are OG funded, you can get that covered by your OG funding, but you have to go in person to the bookstore to do that. You can't do that online. If you are not OG funded, unfortunately, there is a cost for that textbook, as many college courses, of course, do have textbooks that you have to purchase. And you can do it with the online method that I will be describing coming up shortly. Hope that all makes sense, and carrying on to the next section of the video for you. Okay, so the first thing you're going to have to do in order to get started on the course is you do need to purchase a textbook access code from, and you can do that from the Camosun bookstore. So this is through Pearson. As I said, the program we use is called Pearson My Math Lab. And I do apologize that there is a cost to this, but it is like most of your college courses will unfortunately have a textbook. The price of this is not as bad as some, but higher than others. Our long-term goal is to get this shifted over to a free and open open source option for students, but we really need to have that done properly, and it takes time. And the last thing you want is to be working on a system that hasn't been put together fully and properly and has a whole bunch of errors and stuff. So that is in the works, but unfortunately at this point, it is the My Math Lab option that you need the access code for in order to do the course. So if you go to the bookstore and then you want to look for, under textbooks, the textbooks tab, look for buy textbooks. You know what? I can demonstrate this for you, can't I? Let's just quickly show you this. Go to the Camosun bookstore and textbooks, buy digital materials. And then in this window down here, scroll down until you find our course, Math 072, 073, and also apparently 139. Search. And there you have the access code. So add that to your cart. I'm not going to carry on from here, but add that to your cart and purchase it. You will receive a code that you can then use to access the course online. All right, so if we carry on down to the bottom of this instruction page, I will have sent you this document that you're looking at right here, with these instructions, with the bookstore instructions, and then it will also include a link. Now I've blacked out here the actual course name so that students in future classes don't go to the wrong one. So use the link that I sent in that email. You will just use that link that one time to join the class. You go to the link, you log in with the you create an account if you don't already have one. But if you already have an account, you just log in, and then you enter the access code that you received from your purchase up here. And when you select go to my course, you should see that your course, and I've also redacted that because that will change from term to term as well, because it usually references what term it's in. But you will, again, this will be in the email that I send you, the name of the actual course. You join into that and you will be set up. All right, next. Here, actually, I'm going to show you what that looks like once you're in. You're going to see something like this. My screen here has more options that you don't have for instructors, but there, our current course is Math 072 or Math 073, whichever you're in. If you go to that, you go to the course home, which has all these options here along the left-hand side. And again, mine will have some options that you don't have. For example, I'm sure you won't have instructor resources, but otherwise the main key things that you will have access to are also on display over here. Okay, so I will also have emailed you this document right here that we're looking at, either the 072 version or the 073 version. 072, you see, consists of 5 units. There is a review unit called Just-in-Time Review, and then 4 chapters, chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4. Let me very quickly switch over to 073 and talk about the units in 073. It also has 5 units, chapters 4, 5, 6, 7, and a trigonometry chapter. 2 things I want to highlight here. Chapter 4 was also in Math 072. So if you assessed into Math 073, you do have to complete Chapter 4 because it's very important. The stuff you learn in Chapter 4 comes up in every other chapter after that. So it's really critical. So that's why that's there. However, if you just completed Math 072 and are moving on to Math 073, you don't have to do Chapter 4 again because you just did it. Secondly, this final unit in Math 073 I want to draw your attention to because sometimes people forget about it. That one unit is done differently. It doesn't follow the same structure on My Math Lab that the other chapters all do. Instead, I will email you some scans of documents with practice explanations and practice questions for you to work through. And then once you have completed that, then you go and write the tests for that unit. So don't forget, if you're in Math 073, you do have that one trigonometry unit after you have completed all of the study plan, it's called, stuff for the course for the other chapters. So I'm going to leave it to you. I strongly recommend you read this whole document that I emailed you in detail. And if you didn't get it from me, then shoot me an email and ask me, tell me I didn't get those documents you sent out, or that you claimed you sent out. So it describes the various things available to you, how to work through the material, how MyMathLab works, and so on. And we're not going to read through all that right now. Instead, I am going to, we might come back to it, but instead I am going to, where is it? There, that's what we want. I'm going to summarize it for you, and then I'm going to show you on MyMathLab where to find the various things that this slide talks about, and demonstrate a couple questions for you, how to find the things you need. So as you work through any given unit, I got this broken down into 5 steps. Learn the material. There's a pre-test, work through the study plan. Then there's a post-test, which we already talked about, and a final unit test, which we already talked about. So again, the post-test is like a practice test to make sure you're ready for the final unit test, which is where most of your marks comes from. Back to learn the material. So there's various options here available for you, and students tackle this in different ways. There is an e-textbook, which has very like a traditional style, and for some people that just they hate that, and for some they love it. So you can decide if this is useful for you or not. But an e-text, which has explanations of each topic, examples of each topic, and practice questions for that thing. So that's a great thing to work through. But you see, I got all these sideways arrows here, and arrows going everywhere to all the different ways to learn the material, and then everywhere back to here. There's also homework sections on MyMathLab, which are online and have questions for you, and then links often to explanations, links to the textbook, links to the teaching videos, links to different things that will help. And then there is also a section specifically of videos, animations, worked examples, things like that under the multimedia. You're going to have to experiment a little with this and find what works best for you. Some people just love working through the chapter in the textbook. Other people look at the textbook and their eyes just roll back into their head, and they're just, they see all the numbers and symbols and graphs and everything on there, and they're like, these homework sections are a great alternative. I wouldn't say entirely free of the textbook. You still probably are going to end up going back and referring to the textbook. But if you work through all these homework sections, and, when you get stuck, go seek out an answer, contact me for extra help as you need. That is also another great way to learn the material for the chapter. And then, of course, I wouldn't just go watch a bunch of videos. I think you want to use the videos as a resource when you are trying questions and getting stuck. You don't learn math just by watching somebody else do it. You really need to practice it yourself. So however you decide to tackle that, you want to learn the material for the course, and I'd recommend maybe starting here or here if you're doing it for the first time and not sure. And again, you're going to have to experiment a little and see what works the best for you. Every student's a bit different how they prefer to learn things. Then the way the MyMathLab system works is there is what's called a study plan. And in the study plan, as you work through material, you learn mastery points. You earn mastery points, you don't learn them. Once you get enough mastery points, then the post-test and the final chapter test will become automatically available for you. If that ever doesn't happen, which sometimes the system glitches, and you think it should be available but it's not, let me know. I can also release it by hand. So the basic idea is you first learn the material and practice it. And then you start working through the study plan. And as you work through the study plan, get some things wrong, you get some things right. It gives you more questions from the things you got wrong, until you have worked up enough mastery points for the unit for this post-test to open. Now, you see this thing that's tucked right in there in between that I haven't talked about yet, the pretest. The pretest you can do right off the bat if you want. It's optional. It's not part of your grade, but if you want to do it, you can do that right off the bat. And what that'll do is say you get, say you learn all the material, you get 60% on the pretest. Well, it'll give you mastery points for all those things you got right, so you don't need to work through all those things on the study plan. And the study plan, I will admit right now, can be time consuming and cumbersome. That's because, often that's the case with learning math, right? It takes time. So you can short circuit some of that if you do the pretest and do well on it. And what will happen is the study plan will adapt and only go through the things that you didn't get right on the pretest. Okay, so that is a very quick overview of how you want to think about each unit. Now, I'll also throw in there that some students, what you see here is the ideal. This is how I would ideally recommend working through a unit in this course. Learn the material solidly, do the pretest, work through the rest of the study plan, and then write your tests. There are students I know who will jump right into this study plan, and maybe the textbook they find really doesn't work for them, or something. Or maybe you've already done this course and you just didn't get the grade that you need. You did it back in high school or something, and you needed a certain grade, but you didn't get high enough. So you might be like, take a quick look through the textbook topics and be like, oh yeah, no, I remember this stuff. And you could just jump right into that study plan if you want. And what'll probably happen is some things you'll get right and you'll be fine, and other things you'll run into a roadblock where you don't remember. And that's maybe when you go back to the textbook or the videos or the homework sections and do a little extra practice on that thing to remind yourself, and then come back and carry on through the study plan. So I basically just given 3 or 4 options for how you want to approach this. And as I think I said, every student is really unique in what they find works best for them, whether they work through the whole textbook first. Some will work through each homework section and then the study plan that goes with it. Some people will work through all the homework sections, then the study plan, and only go back to the textbook when they need to. Some work through the whole textbook, all the homework assignments, go to the videos when they need, and then work through the study plan now that they feel they really understand everything. All good options depending on what you find clicks for you. Let's see, back to this. I just want to see if there's anything really critical I missed in that. This basically describes everything I just said. So taking a quick look. Study plan to earn mastery points. Teaching videos are on there, and there's links to them from various places. E-textbook as one of the options to learn the material. Homework sections as an option to practice the material, but not for marks. Pretest, not for marks, but it can shortcut a lot of the the mastery points. And then the portions that are for marks, your post-test and your final unit test for each unit. Oh yeah, okay, this is important. So when you complete a test on My Math Lab, it's going to give you an initial score, just an automated score. And that score is often going to be a lot worse than you wanted to do, probably a lot worse than you actually know the material, because that score will usually just give you 0 for anything you don't get completely right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and I'm going to add in part marks. So don't get too discouraged when you see that bad score. I do wish that it didn't actually do that, but you're gonna take all of your rough work, you're gonna take pictures of it or scan it and email it to me. Do that right away when you finish the test, and I will go through and add in as many part marks as I possibly can justify. Sometimes I can tell just from your answer. Maybe you put in an answer of 5 and the correct answer was -5, and I look and I can see, well, clearly they just lost the negative sign, right? Just a little mistake, and you're going to get half out of 1 or 0.75 out of 1. Instead of 0 out of 1, which it initially gave you. Or other times I do need to look at that work because, your answer is 17 and the right answer is 4. And I think, well, that's nothing close to the right answer. But when I look at your work, I see you just made a tiny mistake. Maybe you just copied the question wrong. Maybe you wrote down 3 instead of 2 or something from the original question. But then if I follow through your work, I can see you know how to do that question. I can give you lots of part marks on that. So sending me that rough work is really important. Not getting despondent if you see a mark that's significantly lower than you had hoped. Wait until those part marks come in, and then you can decide whether or not you want to be despondent about the result. And remember, you do always get that second attempt at the test. So if you really thought you were ready but it goes terribly, you do have that extra attempt at it. Here also we have the final exam. We've already talked about that. It'll be supervised and you must pass the final to pass the course. And here I have some comments I've made about self-paced learning and the advantages and disadvantages. I'm going to talk about that again a little bit later here. I think at this point what we really want to do is get in and demonstrate a few of these things. So here is roughly what your course home looks like. Again, mine's going to have more options than yours because I have the instructor view, but over here you have these various things we talked about. So study plan right here when you're ready to dive into the study plan. Then it walks you through these things one at a time, some practice, and then a quiz me. Why don't we take a look at this? If you open that up. So here we have a question. I don't think that's the one I wanted to look at. Sure, here. This review, the review unit is very large, but you'll find a lot of the things are fairly straightforward, and then other ones maybe you need to prep up a little bit on. So if we look at this, we have a question here. Now let's say you're not sure how to tackle that question. They want you to put a less than or a greater than sign in there. Look down here, get more help. So this particular question has an animation which we could watch, which demonstrates how to do this question. It has a link to the textbook that is the same, that covers this topic. You can click on this and view an example of a similar question with explanation of how to do it. And then you also have this help me solve this, which gives you a little bit of a pointer in the right direction for how to do this question. When you do decide to click on that box and enter, you'll see that things will pop up here, some options that, here you can create a fraction, an exponent, or superscript, which is an exponent, your less than, greater than, your division signs, multiplication sign, things like that. And those will change from chapter to chapter, question to question, depending on what might be required for that particular question. So that's how you would work your way through the study plan, and you can see this is question 1. You have 10 questions in this particular one. You do all the practice. Then you do a little quiz on the same topics, and boom, you'll see 1 or 2 mastery points pop up for yourself as you work through that material, working through the chapter. We talked about the e-text, so there's your link to that right there. And then you click on this, and until you get the hang of this, it's a bit awkward, but let me just show you how to navigate this textbook a little quicker. If you find a better way, then let me know, please. Click on the table of contents, and then it doesn't give you a scroll bar yet, but if you click on contents, this is now the contents of the entire book, and now you'll see that over here see that a scroll bar has appeared. Pull that down, and you can go to wherever you want to. So let's say we want to go to Chapter 2. Now Chapter 2 has opened up. Scroll down. Maybe we wanted Section 2.4. And once you've navigated to the correct section, you see here that the whole thing doesn't fit on, which is a big pain. But at that point, once you're to the right section, just close this down. And now you have there. That's fairly nice. And you read through, it has some explanation. Go on to the next page right here. And has some examples. And on the same page as the examples, it has over here on either the left or the right practice questions for you to try, with the answers down at the bottom of the same page. So examples, similar practice questions. On to the next page, same idea, some explanation, an example, a couple practice questions with the answers right down below here at the bottom. So that's the layout of the textbook. Now, some of you look at that and think, yeah, I can work with that. That's great. But as I said before, others of you might look at that and just, whoa, that's not how I learn. And that is why My Pearson has provided several options. So you might just come back to this textbook as you run into a specific problem and need to see a specific example that's like the one you're doing, and that's great. Or, like I said, some of you might work through the entire e-textbook at the beginning. That's the way you learn the material, and then you're good to go on the study plan. Everything else, well, actually, no. Down here, multimedia library is where you are going to find by chapter. So you can search by chapter, say Chapter 1, and say you want to look for videos or animations. Find now. And there you got a big list of the things for Chapter 1. You might want to get more specific. Specifically, I want Chapter 1, Section 1.4. Find now. And there you have a bunch of options. So if you're stuck on the ideas in that particular chapter section, then you can go find videos. This is one way to go find videos that will help you with that. Okay, so we've looked at the e-text, we've looked at the study plan, which is where you earn your mastery points. Where are all these homework sections I talked about and the tests I talked about? They are all under assignments. And here you see the pre-test, which you remember isn't for marks, but you can do to earn a bunch of mastery points without going through all of the study plan for the things that you get right. You see there are homework sections for every section in the book. JITR stands for Just-in-Time Review. It's what they call the review chapter. Then you have the post-test. See the little green flag there? Hover over that. You must earn at least 26 of 35 mastery points on the study plan for Unit R before you can do the post-test. Same with the Unit R final test. So those little green flags means it has not yet released for you. So again, these homework sections are not for marks, but they are a great way to learn the material. Let's open one of those up, actually. I made a note here of which one. 1.1. And let's look at question number 5, which apparently I got wrong before when I didn't actually get it wrong. I think I just opened it and closed it and it marked it wrong because I didn't put an answer in. So here you're working your way through, you're on section 1.1. You're working your way through this group of questions, practice questions on that topic. And it's asking you, is 38 a solution to this equation? So you would plug that 38 in for Z and see whether or not it makes the left side equal the right side, and click on your answer over here. If you're not sure what to do, again, look at all these options down here, get more help. So this one does have a video, so we can click on that, and let's full screen that, and play that video right there. And that'll give you demonstration of how to do this. What else do we got there? We got a link to the textbook. We mentioned this before. Don't use the Ask My Instructor here. I'm more than happy to answer your questions, but email me directly. If you use this, it'll email it to the prior instructor still. View an example. So pop up a similar example, but with different numbers will appear with an explanation of how to do it. Help me solve this. Gives you a kind of a point in the right direction. And you can continue and work through there like that. So this is the homework sections. Again, lots of links to help right there embedded in the question as you go. Okay, I'm going to just read through my list here because I've just been sort of talking, see if I've missed anything. So we have talked about study plan and mastery points, the videos and other resources where you can get them, the e-text, how to open it up, how to get to the part you want, the homework sections, optional but very useful in order to prepare you for the study plan, the pre-test, the study plan, the post-test, which makes sure you are ready for the actual unit final test. All right. We've talked about sending me rough work so that I can give you as many part marks as possible. Great. Okay. So very quickly, self-paced, advantages and disadvantages. Advantages are huge for many students who find the self-paced model really works for them. And I find it very rewarding working in this system because unlike a paced class where if a student, you have a rough week, you get called in for extra shifts, you don't have enough time to study for the test, well, tough luck. The test is on Thursday and that's that. And if you fail it, you fail it and that's that. Self-paced, you have a rough week, you got a lot going on, again, extra shifts at work or your kid gets sick. Well, that's okay. You say, I'm not ready for the test. I want to do the test maybe next week. You just a little bit more time. Get yourself prepped for that test. So that is a huge advantage, of course, to the self-paced model. Now you do need to catch yourself up. Of course, you do need to finish the material eventually. You can't just keep putting it off forever, but being able to write the tests once you are actually feeling prepped for them is massive. The other advantage is for students who might have a few courses to complete in order to get all their upgrading done. You're not limited by a course per term. So if you are in Math 072 right now and you fly your way through it, you got plenty of time to spare, you're working hard, you're in there every day getting stuff done, you finish the course in a couple months, the term isn't over, you can move right into Math 073 and get a start on it as well in the same term. Very rarely I have had students who can complete both 072 and 073 in the same term. It is a massive amount of work, but it's not impossible. So, but at the very least, you can get a start on the 073 going into the next term. So you can get that finished and then, move on to whatever's next after that. Disadvantages of self-paced. It is the same thing as the advantages. Those no set test deadlines, many students struggle to motivate themselves. So you absolutely need to be able to discipline yourself to get in every day if possible. Honestly, if you can do it, or if you have a schedule and you've set these are my times every week that I'm going to work on the math, and you need to get in there and do it, because it is very easy to just put it off till tomorrow, and then tomorrow you put it off till the next day, and the next day you put it off again. And especially if sometimes students will get a good start and then they run into one thing that they don't understand. And instead of reaching out to me for help, which is what you want to do immediately, in that case, you've looked at the videos, you've looked at the text, just doesn't make sense to you, right? And you need to contact me right away. Instead of doing that, students will turn off the computer. Done for the night. And the next day, maybe they turn on the computer and they look and they're like, oh, that thing, I don't understand it. Turn off the computer. A week later, they come back to it. Well, now it's worse because they see, oh yeah, that thing I didn't understand. And maybe now even the stuff they had done before that was making sense, well, they haven't thought about it for a week, and it's not they can't quite remember it either. Another week goes by, a month goes by, 2 months go by, you're halfway through the term, and you're stuck somewhere in the middle of the very first unit still. And you realize that you're not going to finish in that term. And, it just builds like that, right? So you need to be logging in regularly every day or two, completing some mastery points, completing some sections, contacting me when you run into a problem. It's absolutely critical. So that is the downside to the self-paced. You need self-discipline. So you want to make a timeline and stick to it. And I do have, just looking at here, so you can kind of get a feel for the whole course, Math 072 on the left, Math 073 on the right. Shows you how many sections each course has. Now this 21 in Unit R, that's a little misleading. It is big. The review unit is big, but a lot of those are going to be things that you're going to be able to work through fairly quickly. So if you either add up, here's all the sections that you have to work through, and then you also consider that you're going to need to do a pre-test, post-test, final test, although pre-test is optional, for each unit. That's about 70 items if you want to think about it that way. There's 90 days in the term, so you want to be completing, at least you want to be completing at least one of those things every day. So that would be, a section would be completing whatever prep you're going to do, the e-text, the homework section, the videos, and also the study plan for that section. That's one way to think about it. Or if you want to think about it strictly in terms of mastery points, there's 156 mastery points in Math 072. There's 90 days, so you want to be completing a couple every day, probably 2 or 3 to give yourself some slack on average, right? So that means if you spend 5 days working through the homework sections for a chapter, you haven't done any mastery points yet. You then have to, do like 5 mastery points a day for the next few days to get yourself caught up to that schedule. Yet a third way to think about this is there are 5 units and there's about 12 weeks in the term. So 5 times 2 is 10. If you can complete a unit every 2 weeks, that gives you a couple weeks to prep and do the final exam. So for the fall term here, if you're looking at this in fall 2024, we start on September 3rd or something like that. You're hoping to be done that Unit R 2.5 weeks, but the Unit R is a bit bigger, so maybe you could give yourself a 3rd week there, catch it up later sometime. But if you're not following that pace, you are not going to be able to finish in the term if that is your goal. Now, let's see. I think I've already talked about that. Yeah, it is math. There will be challenging moments. There will be times when something doesn't make sense to you. So I just need to encourage you again, contact me when that happens. Get help. Get yourself out of that rut and back started again. I will keep tabs on your progress. I'm able to see what you've been completing on my math lab, and I'll check every day pretty well. And I have a giant folder. I keep notes on each student of when they last worked, when we last communicated, what we said to each other, so I can sort of be clear on where you're at. And I understand that you're all adults and you have life stuff happening, and so if I see a few days where you're not working, or even a week where you haven't been in, I'm not going to pester you nonstop and say, hey, what are you doing today? I'm going to leave that to you. You had a busy week, you weren't able to do math, but you're going to work double hard next week, or you're going to catch all up on Sunday, or whatever it is. But once I've seen 10 days to 2 weeks that you haven't done anything, you'll probably get a gentle check-in from me and say, hey, are you stuck? Is there anything I can do? Are you just busy? What's up? How can I help? I want to help you get back on track and get started, because I know you're all in this course because you have a goal, right? And my goal is to help you achieve your goal. So I know sometimes you need a gentle nudge to get yourself back going again. So I'll try to do that when I see that you have been inactive for a while. And I think I've already talked about grades and the possibility of an IP. If you do finish early, then I can give you a grade in 072, and you can move right into 073. After 073, my understanding is your next course, 097, is not self-paced, although I'm not 100% sure that there's not a self-paced option, but I'm pretty sure there's not. So when you finish 073, you do, I think, need to wait to the start of a term to begin 097. Don't take my word for that, though. If you're interested in a self-paced option, you could check with an advisor to see if that does exist. Okay, I think that's all. Let me know if you have any trouble getting set up with your MyMathLab account and joining our class and the access code and all that stuff. And I look forward to chatting with each one of you at some point early here in the term.